Because the goal is, next week and the weeks after that, whenever you're learning JavaScript and all that other good stuff, that you don't have to, you're not thinking about the HTML and CSS. It's coming more second nature to you, okay? So the big thing to me is just making sure you have layouts completely down. So today we're going to go into a little bit more complex layouts, like full screen layouts, not just with the container where, you'll see more when you start building, full-fledged web applications, all right? So we're also going to concentrate today on semantics. All right. Now that we understand how all the box model works and all that good stuff, we're going to concentrate on making our page be as, semantically correct as possible. Yeah, fun stuff. All right. So everyone has access to this document, right? This main document here. Okay. So just to give you all, if you want to, I think this document explains it best to me. Nice and short and sweet, the different HTML5 semantics. So just to go through them, you've seen us use the main element a lot, right? So that's supposed to be the main section of your website. We'll use articles today. We've already used sections. The nav element. See how they like to have it with the nav and then the unordered list and then the list items. We'll go with that. And then we're going to go and build. We're going to have a sidebar today because we're going to build a blog template. So you'll see the aside element come into play. But feel free to read this this document whenever you have a break. Whenever we take some of those breaks, and I think it'll put it all together real nice and easy for you. And I'll try to explain it as we're building it throughout the day. So. What we're going to take some time this morning to do is build a recreation, a little blog template here, and I'm going to go over some stuff. Not only we're going to do this layout here with Flex, but also we'll go through some SEO and some real basic SEO and SMO stuff here, just so you know in case you ever build a blog template or something like that. All right. So let's take a look at this. Let's kind of talk through this first, because the main thing is just getting this layout down. So everybody, we've done that nav bar up top, right? That all makes sense. We did that with Flex yesterday. We'll run through that again today just as a reviewer, right? Then we have this main portion of our site, and it's about how big, right? It's about, what would you say? 75%. About 75%? We'll go 70, 75. And then we just have our sidebar, which is about the remainder, 25 to 30%, right? So, nice and easy. Let's first dive into doing this nav bar. I'm going to create a new document. We'll save it. And remember, like usually I would advise keeping one style sheet for the entire site, right? But just for the sake of us learning, I want to go back through and build it from scratch. That way it becomes it becomes repetitive and you understand what's going on. So usually you wouldn't do this, but for learning's sakes, we will. And we'll just say blog. We'll create a document called blog style, right? So everybody remembers that. We're in the test.github.io folder. We're telling it to go into the CSS folder, and we have the reset there, and then we're going to go ahead and create the blog style.css, right? We'll create a new file in that folder. what did I call it? Blog style.css. We'll just grab that header stuff again and put it in there. I'm also going to go ahead and grab the correct font family. So everybody remembers all this, right? Font family, font weights, the boldness, we have the color, the margin top because the header has a height of 50 pixels and is fixed, so it's off the page, right? Got top. We don't need the left, but it's in there. Then we have width, 100%. Remember z-index? Someone give me what the z-index means. Exactly. Yep, the depth. So the higher the number, the higher it is. If you pictured your site as a stack of papers, whenever you use any type of positioning other than static, then that z-index comes into play. It's like putting another piece of paper on top of another one. Remember that from yesterday, right? And then border bottom, 1 pixel solid. So we have all that. And then I'm just going to grab. Actually, let's walk through this one more time. It'll be good practice. So we're creating this header, right? Then we have our we'll call it site title. Now we want to create our nav. So we say nav, put the unordered list in there. Actually, let's do emit just so it's nice and fast. Say nav, unordered list, list items. And I think there were 4, right? Actually, we'll go. All right, so we have our 4 list items, each with an href here. What were they again? Home, blog. Actually, we'll say. What is going on? Sorry, getting a little warmed up here. Brain's not working 100% this morning. All right, so all this makes sense, right? So we want to, first we want to, keep it within the width of a container, right? So we want to create that container. So we're wrapping everything in there in a container. And then we have to come over here. And remember, we want the container to be about, at this, we'll just say width 970 pixels, right? And then how do I center a block element? There we go, margin 0 auto. So it is a div. We did use a div. It's just a class container.
Now, if I use div, would that hinder me or help me or what?
So we used a div.
Okay,
right, and we just gave it a class of container. Yeah. You can name the class whatever. It's just, to me, it makes sense as a container. It's like, this is what you're containing the words within, right? Okay. So we have div. All right. You're welcome. So from yesterday, we want this to have we want to use flex to do the nav bar, right? So we're going to align the site title and the nav, right? So what do we need to? Someone tell me what element I need to do the flex, to say display flex on. Yeah, so the containing element, right? So the container, because the container is the parent of both of these, right? So just so we have all those prefixes, I'm going to go ahead and grab, what we used yesterday for the container. That's just organizing everything. So we have display flex, which naturally puts it side by side, right? And naturally, also when you do display flex, I wish I had kept those up there actually for our cheat sheet, but oh well. It goes flex start by default, right? So flex start, remember flex start controls the main access, and naturally by default when you do flex, display flex, it's a row, right? So the main axis is left to right, and flex start by default is the main axis, right? I'm sorry, not flex start. Justify content, right? Justify content right here controls the main axis, and by default it's flex start. So that's why we have them to the left, right? Clump to the left. So what we want to do, remember, is push them as far wide as possible. So we want to use space between. Remember that? Space between. And I still use that cheat sheet because I still have trouble with, all of it sounds the same to me between its justify content, align items. So boom, we have it pushed to the right, correct? And then we also want to, get these displaying next to each other, right? So what's one way we could do that? We can do inline block, right? Or we could also use flex. Nav. Yeah, nav or UL, yeah. Or actually UL, you're right, because it's the parent element of the list items. Exactly. Yep.
If the flex defaults to row,
yep.
why is it when you put the flex to your container element, the home projects about and blog aren't?
Okay, so flex solely, when you do display flex, it's solely to that element's child elements, right? So this is a child element, and this as a whole, the whole nav UL is a child element, right? Not the list items. They're like grandchildren elements. She said, why does, when you use, for the people out there watching online, when you use flex and it defaults to row, why is the unordered list displaying as a column? So, and great point made. In order to use flex on these list items, or on these, either one, anchor tags, we need to use it on the UL, not the nav, because the nav only has one child element, right? So we got header, nav, UL. All right, so as easy as that. And then yesterday, we talked about aligning the content, right? So this was on the cross axis. So align content to, was it align content or align items? Do you remember? Align items. That's right. We used align content yesterday, and it was align items. Am I doing wrong? Shouldn't be. Oh, it's because, sorry, the container right now is just defaulting to the height. See, the container is defaulting to the height of its content, right? So we haven't given it an explicit height. So in other words, it is in the center. You know, it's not going to change at all because it's only that tall. So we'll make the container the same height. Let's be specific on this one since we're going to have other containers. So any container that's within the header, make it the same height as the header, right? So now the container will be 50 pixels. See how it's now the same height as the header? Right? And now, when we do align items, it'll go in the center. See that? So the container was defaulting just to the height of the content, so it didn't matter if we pushed center, you know, it was minimal change. So now that we have the container the same height as the header, it's in the middle. All right, so we have that.
Question.
Yep.
What's the difference between align items and align content?
Let's go through that.
Is there a difference? Align items is along one axis, align content is along the
They're both across, they're both on the cross axis. What's the difference between align items and align content?
Okay, it looks like align content is the other axis, and align items is, oh no, wait a minute.
Line items is within one row, whereas align contents along multiple rows.
Yeah, exactly. So what he's saying is if you had multiple rows, remember yesterday how we did the example? We did the example, well, I guess that wouldn't matter, or that wouldn't show it. But we did the example with the Google, with our Google portfolio, right? And we did the aligned content. So we had like a big box, right? If you had multiple rows, then and it didn't cover the full width. Let me bring that back up. Be easier for y'all to see. All right. Actually, give you a visual here. So if we had a line, if we used align items, right, here, bring this back up. So we used align items. So in other words, this is getting confused again. Yeah. So line items is per row, right? Okay. So right now, and then align content is for the whole thing. So align content. So the cross axis, right, since this is a row right here, I'm trying to get this as big as possible to show you. I gave this a height of 800 pixels, right? So it was, before I changed align content, it was having equal space in between, right? But now, since the cross axis is up to down, when you put that back in there, the aligned content is distributed for the whole thing, and then align items is per row. So align items, center will keep this row, actually, I'm sorry, on here, since it's the cross axis, it'll be column. We'll keep these centered so that 1, 3, and 5 are centered left to right, and then align content puts them all centered in the middle. Does that make?
Yeah, I pulled up the guides.
Okay. So content is for the across the entire element, and then items is per row or column, depending on what the cross axis is. All right, so in the break you can style that better, but the main thing is just so that we understand the layout, right? And so then we have a main section and a side section, so I'm just going to go ahead and create that real quick. And actually, we want to keep this main section and the side section within our site's container. So we'll put them both in the container.